Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly live question and answer series here on YouTube, where we sit with an integrative physician and we answer any and all health-related questions that you can ask us. Over here on this side of the video, you should see a chat section there. If you're logged into YouTube, you can post your questions there. You can also email us your questions at office@TLC Doctors. Just put in the subject line question for live Q&A. The staff will make sure that those questions come to us, and I will ask those if you're having any trouble logging into YouTube, or if you have questions that come up during the week. Dr. Althorpe, thanks for sitting with us today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
It is, right? I do want to mention a quick disclaimer. The information that we're sharing here is for educational purposes, general broad strokes on our approaches to things, coming from the perspective of a physician who practices integrative medicine, which is, of course, the combination of the best of both the functional, the holistic side of medicine, while still maintaining a standard of care that you would find with other doctors. And of course, we spend much more time with our patients to get to know them, the whole them, inside and out, from the time they're born to the time that they meet us. So I have a couple questions that came in via email. I think we'll start with those, Doctor, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
On that disclaimer, I think I forgot to mention, so this is general information. Just make sure that you do have a relationship with a physician, or you schedule an appointment with one of our doctors, because this is not to take the place of that relationship with your physician and the specific medical advice that they can give to you. All right, so to kick us off here, I have a question that was emailed to us from Natasha. She emailed us at office@TLC Doctors, and she says, do you have any recommendations on specific types of water filters, carbon, reverse osmosis, etc.?
Well, there are portable, affordable carbon filters, and the one that has a 5-stage that you can buy like at Walmart or Kmart, Target, is called Zero. And it does have a good profile, so if you need something immediately, for $30 or so, that would be a good choice. There's the Brita. It doesn't meet up as high a standard as Zero, and what that's talking about is the particulate content in the water after they do their filtration. So Brita has more particulates in the water than Zero. Zero does a better job, but it's an excellent thing to have in your home as some first step measure for protecting yourself and your family. Mm-hmm. Then you can get to other devices that are installed or on top of your counters. And the one that I like the best for many reasons is the Kangen system. Kangen offers, its plant is in Torrance, so you can get work to take care and clean the plates that do ionizing of the water, and they what they call hydrogenated, which makes it very much an antioxidant type of water. And that's the one I'm going to stick with. I have had it. I've used it for many, many years in my life.
That's an alkaline
alkalizer, yeah, but it also filters it as well. So if you're going to spend the dollars and you're in a permanent residence, you can get the filter put for your water. You can have it on top of your counter so you can move place to place, or you can have it installed and then have a water little faucet added to your water for getting your water. So that's what I recommend.
Okay, great. Next question, do you know any health benefits for exclusively breastfeeding a baby up to 1 year rather than starting solids at 6 months?
Well, I think if you have a very healthy baby, most of them are going to be too hungry and growing too fast to exclusively breastfeed. Mm-hmm. Now that would be the rarity,
right. That's not to say you couldn't continue to breastfeed and supplement that with some foods.
So, are there health benefits to exclusive breastfeeding? Absolutely. It allows the gastrointestinal system of the baby to have a very good length of time to develop and seal. Remember, there are junctions that have to seal up. And these junctions are what foods pass through, and then they get into the systemic environment of the baby. starting to try and create a immune response to that food. So yes, if you have exclusive breastfeeding for a full year, you are going to optimize the immune structure and integrity of the tube, the gastrointestinal system, and you're going to optimize that child's immune system.
Okay.
And if you do start giving foods before that, I certainly wouldn't start, say, before 4 months for sure. And if you do, I would make it only a limited amount of foods. I wouldn't try and say, all right, we can have everything now.
Right.
I would stick with maybe 4 at most different foods, 1 per day, and rotate them. So if you have green beans on one day, plus his breastfeeding, carrot on the next day, plus his breastfeeding, spinach on the 3rd day, plus his breastfeeding, and
so I have a 4-month
squash.
Baby right now. What we're doing is we found a source, and I don't know the name of it off the top of my head because my wife ordered it, but it's organic, single source, and they give you these little jars that are made locally, and it's one type of food at a time. So it's carrots, and it's just carrots,
right.
Or it's spinach, and it's just spinach.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would go beyond too much of a variety.
Right, and we're not. What we're doing is we're sticking with spinach for like 2 days and just seeing how the baby reacts to that, seeing if there's any disturbance, and if he's good with that, then we'll move on to maybe carrots, and we'll move on. So we're rotating like every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, and then I wouldn't mix them.
No.
You know, I would have carrots 1 or at most 2 days.
Right.
The other vegetable 1 or at most 2 days, because that is going to be something the baby has to recognize, which draws attention to humans. You know, humans, as if babies aren't humans. If you as an adult are eating all sorts of foods in any one day and all manner of spices in any one day, you are stressing your immune system for the shock of everything you're putting in down your throat, as opposed to doing viral and immune protection. So I would strongly ask everyone to meter when is there going to be a day for a treat or a celebration where you'll loosen up and have a entertaining day.
Right.
And the other days of your life should be as simplistic as we teach your major protein and your vegetable, a very limited small salad, and maybe
low or no processed.
Right,
very
of course.
simple ingredients.
And
is
then
what we advocate.
try and eat that for all your meals of one day, as opposed to marketing is trying to give you a breakfast variety and a lunch variety and a dinner variety.
Right.
That's so hard on the immune system. It's making us immunologically weakened as a people.
Yep.
So we call this a 1 menu day, 24 hours. We usually ask people to skip breakfast. We ask them to eat a lunch and an early dinner, because late night eating is also immunologically destructive and against longevity. And now you can have a day where you're having eggs for lunch and bacon, and eggs for dinner and bacon, you know, and make your breakfast menu a 1 day menu, one of your series, you know.
Yeah, our gut is really the gateway to our body, where we're putting in what is hopefully information and nutrients, nutrition for our body to digest.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we see over and over again, most Americans are eating a diet just wide in entertainment and variety, processed food that has 20, 30 different ingredients just per plate.
Mm-hmm.
Versus what we advocate here is a simple diet that is rotational. So 1 protein, 1 or 2 vegetables a day, very low carbohydrates, drinking your water, and then the next day you move on to another one. I think of the gut, which I always recall has 70 to 80% of our entire immune system is lining it, because it has to figure out friend or foe, friend or foe.
Yeah.
And it almost is, I think of it as our gut doing like translating services.
Yes.
Where if you're filling the room with Chinese or Mandarin or Spanish or Italian and French, and those are all your different ingredients in your food, it's trying to listen to this cacophony of information, versus if you're giving it something very simple, it can identify it, deal with it without causing a big stress on your immune system.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, great question. Any recommendations for quick snacks? We live in Texas and do not have access to the nutrition bar sold at your clinic.
Well, I would just go along with the diet recommendations. Do you really need snacks? That would be my question back to you. Do you really need that snack? And if you're eating a more modest, disciplined, controlled, immunologically calming system, that food should be, for instance, if I make a dinner of chicken, roasted chicken, and green beans, I make enough so it's my lunch the next day.
Right.
Okay? And if I want a snack, I snack on the sequence of time that I allow myself to eat, noon to 6 p.m., and I'm going to have more chicken and green beans. You can be great, you know, I can taste the sweetness of green beans. So, you know, you're being marketed to that you have to eat all the time.
Right.
And again, so I did on Labor Day, which was September 7th, I think, Monday, I didn't eat for 5 days. And so I didn't eat until Saturday evening. So from Monday evening until Saturday evening, I had nothing but water. And I worked and I did my workout. And then thereafter, I've only been taking my doctor's nutrition bar that we created. And I have one at 1 o'clock and I have one at 5 o'clock. And I've been on that ever since. So it's been 2 weeks where I'm living on 480 calories a day. So,
and that's not something we necessarily recommend for everybody. You're doing a little bit of an experiment on
right.
yourself, and that 5-day fast is something that you do twice a year.
Right.
Okay.
So you've got to learn to disengage from marketing.
Yep.
And like when I'm doing research, like I have a paper to bring up here, or at least a concept, I am seeing all manner of commercials about food and so forth, or I'm driving, or I see, you know, in my own office, my staff bringing in treats. You are going to be challenged through marketing, and you just have to decide what your goal is and plan it. And so either you plan and work your plan, or you've planned to fail. And so there's all manner of benefits from a full fast for a series of time, and of course you have to work into it, see your doctor about that. But there's all manner of testing, and like the doctor's nutrition bar, I cannot believe how satisfied I am. I mean, we're 2 weeks now, after 5 days of no food, I've been 2 weeks living on 480 calories a day. And I am doing my workouts, I'm sleeping great, I just am very pleased with how at 66, 7 years old, I have all this energy and mental acuity.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you bring up a very, I think, important reminder about snacking. We're actually not very pro snacking.
No.
We've been told time and time again that we should be eating many times throughout a day, nibbling on little things.
Marketing.
Right. But we're actually more pro like an intermittent fasting type lifestyle where you're giving your immune system a break, your gut a break from doing the work of digesting food.
Exactly. So my body is working on healing me, so I don't have any arthritis.
Right.
I don't have any agedness, you
Right.
know, and so my repair time is greatly expanded. Hence, you know, all the research, most of the research is suggesting that the more you incorporate fasting periods into your life, the longer, healthier you will live.
Right, absolutely. Now, if we have somebody walking through the door who's been living a complete opposite lifestyle, we
Right.
don't expect them to necessarily change overnight.
Right.
And so,
But we'll walk them
we'll
into
take them
it.
baby steps into it. So I wouldn't expect somebody to walk in the door used to eating 7 or 8 times a day to cut back to eating twice a day. So if they did need to reach for a snack that was healthy versus an unhealthy snack, what would you say? Maybe some raw nuts that are healthy?
Yeah, if you have nuts, they're mostly carbs. They're marketed as a good protein source, but that's a lie. If you go to the Encyclopedia of Food Values, you'll see it is largely a carbohydrate with modest to mild amounts of protein in it. And you shouldn't eat mixed nuts. You should eat one nut per day. Remember, we want to limit the amount of variety. So you should have some measuring amount. Now, in my house, I have 7 different jars with nuts in it. And if I do have nuts, I have my little cup that I measure it in, and that's all I get for a day, okay? So, but the other thing is I'll cook up 4 pounds of bacon, and I will cook it into a more crispy state, and then I'll put them on the paper towel, and I'll have them all in a container, and it will be like potato chips to me. So I'll eat bacon nibbles, you know, as a snack. I'll have a hard-boiled egg as a snack. I'll have nuts as a snack. I'll have raw broccoli or raw carrots.
I like to do hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah, hard-boiled eggs are excellent.
Okay, well, hopefully that answers your question on snacks and gives you some ideas there. I've got one more question from Natasha that I'm going to turn over to some questions that we're getting on the live Q&A, and then I have some questions sent in by Elliot via email as well too. So the last question from Natasha is, any advice for staying motivated to change your diet when no one around you agrees with your plan?
Plan your work and work your plan. I go to the Bible, Job 23 verse 12, where it says, I esteem the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. I also go to Proverbs 23 verse 1 that says, if you're a man given to appetite, put a knife to your neck, you know, and it goes on to say, lest that those dainties corrupt you. So I use the Bible. I will ask God to help me in my discipline and why I'm doing things. You know, the Bible tells you not to proclaim your fast, you know, otherwise you'll lose your blessing. But what I'm doing here is trying to educate my patient population. And so you have to plan your work your plan, and you have to have your goal in sight. My goal is to help many people, God's wonderful creation. And so I read the Bible every day, okay? That's my motivation. Do I slip up? Do I binge? Yes, I'm a normal human being. But when I do, you know, I am so thankful that all my sins are covered, you know, and paid for. And I ask God to help me get up and stand up again, you know, and continue on. I'll usually fast 24 hours to 48 hours. If I binge and make a mistake, then I will kind of, so say, discipline myself and not
punish
eat.
Yourself.
Yeah, punish myself for a day or two of not eating.
Right. And just a couple other practical pieces of advice there. Dr. Althorpe mentioned, in other words, remembering what your why is. What's your motivation for the change? Is it your kids? Is it living longer to be around for them? Is it your health, your energy levels? Is it a passion that you have in your life? So I think journaling or thinking about what your why for any goal is important, and to look back to that why. And some people have vision boards or journaling as a way to remind themselves, what's the point of this sacrifice that I'm making? I would also add, if you're struggling at home, if you're saying at home people around you are eating differently and there's snacks and treats that you're trying to avoid, enroll them in it if you need to. You know yourself best, and if that temptation is going to be too great, sit down with your loved ones and say, look, this is important for me. This is something that I'm going to try. I'm going to do it for X amount of time. And I would really appreciate it if we could lock these things up or move them away, or if you could support me in this new choice for eating healthy.
Right, that's announcing to those in your environment what your plan is.
And
that forces you to be accountable.
Right.
So you have to expose yourself to accountability, okay? And I do it here in the clinic. You know, everyone knows I better not see a cookie hanging out or donuts and stuff. So I work on Saturdays, so I'm off Mondays. When I came in here, I saw those donuts on the table. Somebody brought them in, thinking I'm not here, so they're not offending me.
Yeah.
But that's life, and I could have seen it and eaten one. Did I think about it? You betcha, I thought about it. But I want to work for another 30 years. I never expect or hope to retire. I love what I do. And I'm never going to get there and be functional if I don't discipline myself and work hard to stay healthy.
Yep.
Okay.
Good answer. Well, I have a couple questions that came in on the live chat. I know you have a piece of informational research there. Which direction do you want to go?
Yeah, let's
Start
answer
here?
questions.
Can I ask you a question first?
Yeah.
Sure.
I have a question that's personal, but I think it probably pertains to a lot of people. I love eggs. They're obviously a great source of health and nutrition, but they show up highest on my inflammation markers. I'm not supposed to have them. Do you typically see that if someone doesn't eat these things that are clearly setting their body off, that they fall off and they rotate, or do you see sometimes things that just people just shouldn't have their whole lives?
Yes to both answers. There are some foods that your body will set off as a reaction immunologically. And if they go through, let's say, the immunolab testing for IgG antibodies, and you have your set and you avoid them for 3 months, that should give you enough time to heal and be able to reintroduce those foods 1 per every 4 days. And if you don't have any reaction in any 4 days, then you could have eggs once a week, as many as you like.
Got it. Thank you.
But if you find in that 4-day period of time that day 2 or 3 after eating those eggs and you've held everything under control, you're like, wow, where's my energy? Where's my mental? Where's my joint pain? Where's my gas and bloating? Then you're going to have to say, I reintroduced those eggs and they are just not well digested in me. I better avoid them as much as I can always.
Great, thank you.
And that's an important step that I think our patients sometimes miss. I know I missed when I did my immunolabs food and I learned what my sensitivities were. I avoided them and then I would slowly let them creep back in. But because I wasn't journaling how I was feeling after I'm eating, I sort of lost touch with, it's easy to slip into feeling a little bit worse and not noticing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a couple questions that came on YouTube on the chat section. Elliot says, I don't know if this is quite relevant to what we discuss here, but knowing that Dr. Rita is a Christian, wondering what her take is on Psalms 104:15, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face to shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart.
Well, as I look at the Bible, there is wine and then there's strong drink. Strong drink is letting it ferment and become a alcoholic and then toxic material. Wine is pressed from the grape and it is the fruit juice that is not fermented. So that's how I read Psalm 104.
Okay.
And bread is referring to, I perceive there, as meat or food, okay? And if you're going to talk about bread, then keep it under control because of its high carb content,
right.
And don't genetically modify it as we have here in America. Keep it to the ancient grains such as they have in Italy and Europe,
Right.
and keep it limited.
Yeah, bread, wine, any kind of alcohol, those are certainly things that we should always have in great moderation and treat with a healthy amount of fear.
Well, I'm not
respect.
going to endorse drinking alcohol or wine. I'm just not going to endorse it. It's a toxin, okay? But grape juice is how I perceive when he's take a little wine for thy stomach's sake in 2 Timothy, Paul says to Timothy, I think he's talking about the pressed grape, not fermented, strong drink. So you can do a study on that.
Okay.
Right.
I have a question from Lindy. She says, hello, will it ever be a good idea to take the, I think she means COVID-19 vaccination?
The companies that are marketing the COVID vaccine development are also often companies that have been sued for pharmaceutical errors that have damaged, I think there's about $4 billion that have been paid out in vaccine injury alone. Not to mention other things like Vioxx killing many people with heart attacks and so forth. And these people do not get put in jail for these felony crimes. They are put into white crime categories and they're just fined billions of dollars. And so if if it is indemnified, if pharmaceuticals are indemnified, meaning they are allowed not to be harmed by vaccines, and the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986 indemnifies all these companies from the liability of the harm that could come from a vaccine. And often these companies have been sued for other things as well as the $4 billion that have been an injury, and they're never punished for it. What motivates them to be very careful about their vaccine quality? They can say everything they want, and you can see how the CDC flip-flops and the FDA flip-flops, and there's nepotism. Once the doctor who's the head of the FDA is done with their tenure, they get picked up on a pharmaceutical board and live on millions of dollars of income. There's so much potential for crime, and I'm going to call it a crime, and so much potential for looking the other way that I cannot endorse that vaccine or vaccine usage. I'm too concerned about the potential for corruption in the system. I think the system is corrupted.
Okay. And of course, we could refer back to previous videos we've done on other things we can do to bolster our immune system to sustain and make it through this pandemic healthy and strong. Things like vitamin D, zinc, drinking your water, high dose vitamin C.
Well, to that effect, let me just bring up this article. I started my videos in January on COVID-19. We started talking about it then. And I brought up some of the research on Dr. Malik, M-A-R-I-K, Marik, M-A-R-I-K, Paul Marik, who is the Virginia intensive care physician who was using high-dose intravenous vitamin C. If you recall, and we talked about his protocol of the vitamin C, the thiamine, the steroids, for acute respiratory distress syndrome, which he had done even before the SARS COVID-19 developed, and he had very good results, if you recall that. Now he's been using that, and we have data on him. You can go to a YouTube video put out by another physician called Dr. Bean, D-R-B-E-E-N, Medical Lectures. Go to YouTube, Dr. B-E-N, so just write D-R-B-E-E-N, and then write medical lecture, and this will pop up, and you'll see his interview with Dr. Paul Marik on September 15th. And on this, they look back with Dr. Marik on his protocol that I referred you to back in January and February on high-dose vitamin C, and he showed that the ascorbic acid high-dose infusion, the B vitamin thiamines, heparin, and methylprednisolone steroids, and then he added to it zinc and melatonin and vitamin D and the B vitamins and fish oils, and so you can see that his results are just fantastic. And what Dr. Marik is trying to desperately say is the exposure, contact with COVID-19, you have about 5 days, 6 days of incubation where you know nothing, you feel the same. And then around day 7 through 12, 13, the second week, you start getting symptoms of fever, malaise, and cough. This is that time frame where viral replication is becoming exponential, okay? And that is when your immune system is beginning to kill it off. Then that, from exposure to your first symptoms of fever and cough, this is, say, maybe 12 days. From beginning, day 5, you have symptoms, so 5 to 12, you're starting to have the fever and cough. This is where the viral activity is, and that's the only time that antivirals are helpful. And how did they prove it? They did viral cultures, folks. Nobody's doing viral cultures. Remember I brought up in January Koch's principle of medicine taught on the actual, if you think something's causing a disease, you culture it, you grow it, you infect an animal, see they should have the same symptoms, and then you should culture it out of that animal, then you can say, yes, this is causing a disease. Well, they're not following Koch's principle, but some are, and now we're starting to see viral cultures, and the only time there is a viral active culture is in, say, the first 12 days from exposure to your fever and cough. And after that, your immune system has started to kick in and killed it off, and the actual infectivity is around beginning day 5 after exposure, so you're asymptomatic. So it's about 5 to 12 that you really can have enough viral product in your humid fomites that are infective. So anyone who has a fever and a cough should stay home, okay? And that's the only time they can culture virus. About day 13, for all those that have been studied, and the data is now coming in, there's no viral culture after that. So what's happening? The disease of COVID-19, as we have been stating all along since January, is a viral development with your immune response. When the virus dies off, your immune response builds up, and it's the overactive inflammatory immune cytokine response, inflammation, the fire of it, that is exploding the alveoli and ACE2 receptors, your vasculitises and so forth, and creating the disease. So Dr. Marek is saying you should employ antivirals like remdesivir and stuff only within that 2-week period of time. But what are they doing? The studies are after they're hospitalized on oxygen or ventilation, long after the virus is dead, and the PCR testing is going to be positive all the way through for about 3-4 weeks. That is not diagnostic, and that's what I was saying. What are these tests doing? What is the PCR test doing for us? It is not talking about an active infectious disease. It's dead viral particles that are floating through your body, and the inflammatory response to them is what's the second phase of the disease that's killing us, inflaming and exploding cell membranes in the lung. So here, he rightly, and as we had told you, the vitamin C to disinflame yourself, the vitamin D, which acts also as an anti-inflammatory as well as immune and helper. The B vitamins as an anti-inflammatory immune. Our oils, our plant-based oils, parent essential oils as an anti-inflammatory. Our systemic enzymes as an anti-inflammatory. Our water as an anti-inflammatory. Our good night's sleep or melatonin as an anti-inflammatory. Our low-carb diet as an anti-inflammatory. I mean, none of our patients, my patients, have gotten ill. And I have many sick and overweight and hypertensive and diabetic and diseased patients. And so he validates everything I've been saying since this all started out. So there's 2 phases. There's the viral phase where you have basically no symptoms for about 5 days after contact, and then the next 7 days you have fever, cough, and malaise. But that's when your immune system has already seen it and attacked it and killed it off, and that's the only time they culture the virus actually living. Right. But there's bazillions of particles, and then your immune system in the second phase starts a overactive, as we've never seen before, autoimmune, you might say, very similar to that, destroying your joints instead of a slow rheumatoid autoimmune. This is a massive, quick lung destruction, as well as a vasculitis. And so kudos to Dr. Marek with his forward thinking to bring vitamin C into the intensive care. I suggest we start teaching doctors to do it before the intensive care and build up your patients and do preventive medicine so we don't need to have this problem.
Right. Awesome.
Really great video. I mean, the data's there. Koch's postulate of the last century, he's right. This PCR testing, I'm positive. All right, so maybe you have some PCR fragments of dead viruses in you. It doesn't mean you're infections. Oh, I have a serum IgG antibody positive. All right, so apparently you had it, okay? You're not infective. Now, that brings us up to the mask. And so The inoculum, if I get excited, like I get excited when I'm doing this, I'm spraying you with your mother's fomites. But so there is value in decreasing the inoculum with a mask. No, it's not going to stop the particle size of a virus, but we're talking fomite particles. So I do see a value for a mask in times when you are
infectious.
Well, yeah, yes, infectious. And when do you know if you're infectious? In those first 5 days. Now, admittedly, day 1, 2, 3, 4, you're probably still building up virus so that your fomites don't have enough viral particles in them to be a big inoculum. But by day 5, 6, then you have a very significant, but you should know you're already fever and aching and not feeling well, and you should stay home. So, great validation. Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that. We will put information on this article in the show notes below the video. So if you're watching this at a later time, or if you want to go back and see the article that Dr. Althorpe was referring to, you can take a look at it for yourself. We are over time today again, and we have to get Dr. Althorpe ready for her first patient in the morning. But I want to thank you for joining us today. If we didn't get to your question, we're going to take note of it, and we will be sure to put that at the top of the queue for next week's video. We look forward to seeing you then next Wednesday at 9:45 a.m. Pacific. We'll go until about 10:15-ish, and hope to see you there. If you have any questions in between, you can email them to us at office@tlcdoctors.com. Please do us a favor, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to our channel. That's going to help us out. We have a goal to get to 1,000 subscribers. Share this with your friends and family. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you next week. Stay healthy, stay well.
You have a patient